The new food pyramid is out and they flipped it upside down. In this video, we're gonna go ahead and review it. We're gonna go ahead and go through it, see what's good about it, what's bad about it, give you guys my honest take as a doctor of physical therapy, strength conditioning specialist, nutritionist, and natural pro bodybuilder. So let's get into it. Now, this goes without saying, but I will mention it. This is not gonna be a political video. This is not a hot take video. This is just honestly my thoughts. The first thing I wanna go over is gonna be a brief history of US diet guidelines. And so a lot of people think the inception of the food recommendations started with the food pyramid, but it really goes back really far. The first recommendation that I could find dated all the way back to 1894. This is the Atwater Standard. This basically promoted the idea of eating enough calories and protein because at the time in 1894, the biggest thing was obviously manual labor and a lot of people were malnourished. The next recommendation came in 1916. The basic 7 is what they implemented. This just encouraged people to have a variety of foods to prevent deficiencies, especially because they were rationing food at the time. Then in 1956, they implemented the basic 4. This just focused on milk, meat, fruits and vegetables as one group, and then bread and cereal as the other group. Now in 1977, this is where things start to change a little bit more. This is when chronic diseases started to become more prevalent and more dominant, and so the dietary guidelines focused a little bit more on cholesterol, sugar, and fats. In 1980, they released the official first dietary guidelines, which promoted balance, variety, and moderation, which we obviously still use today. Next, we're going to move into 1992. So this is the good old food pyramid. This is where they started implementing carbs at the bottom of the pyramid, and then they had the fruits and the meat, all that good stuff, and then a little bit of fat here at the top. And so this is really where they started to hone down a little bit more on fats and then obviously encourage a higher carbohydrate intake. Then in 2005, they implemented the MyPyramid. So this was just a little bit different version of the normal pyramid that we all know. And then 2011, the government replaced the pyramid with MyPlate, which arguably was a better strategy because a plate is something that we all eat off of. And that brings me to my first kind of interesting thing that I think is kind of funny is that the new pyramid, flipped upside down, is be compared to the old pyramid that we haven't used in a very long time. And so it's kind of comparing apples to oranges because realistically we've been using MyPlate and this is an update from MyPlate to the new pyramid. So let's kind of get into what MyPlate did well and what MyPlate did not do well, the old food guidelines. Now let's go into some of the pros and some of the cons of MyPlate. From a pros perspective, I do like the plate strategy. I think the plate strategy is great for beginners, especially people who are trying to learn about nutrition, kind of see what their plate should look like to be quote unquote healthy. Having half the plate being fruits and vegetables is also, pretty decent call. Is this a perfect solution? For most people, no. Obviously, depending on what their goals are or where they're starting at, your plates are going to look a little bit different. But as a general guideline, I think it's pretty okay. It's not too bad. Now, in terms of the cons, there's really not a whole lot of huge cons that I have, any gripes about this with. Obviously, dairy being like the primary beverage, I think is a little bit funny. Maybe put some water in there as well. Probably shouldn't be having milk for all of your beverages throughout the day. And I think protein is just a little bit small. If they increase the protein just a little bit, I'd be a little bit more happy with the MyPlate model. Next, we're going to go over the best part of the video, which is going to be the new food pyramid. So first thing I would say is realfood.gov is where you can find a lot of the information from the new food pyramid. So feel free to do your own research and go through it yourself. I will say the website is really nice looking, and so I do really appreciate that. No budget cuts there. You're going to notice on the left-hand side of the pyramid, you're going to notice it has protein, dairies, and healthy fats, depicting things like steak, chicken, salmon, eggs, shrimp, and whole milk. On the right-hand side, you're going to see vegetables and fruit. And so you're going to notice things like broccoli, carrots, tomatoes, apples, oranges, grapes, bananas, things like that. At the very bottom, in a tiny little triangle, you have whole grains. And so they're definitely sending a pretty strong message with the new food pyramid. Now, going over some of the things I do like about the new food pyramid, if you look a little bit deeper, besides just the depiction itself, you're going to notice that they do actually increase the recommendation for protein, which I think overall is a pretty good win. Most people aren't getting enough protein, at least that the average person isn't getting enough protein. And so I think this is a good win overall. As a reminder for you guys watching the video, about 0.7 to 1 gram per pound is what I recommend for protein intake for most people who are after body composition changes, obviously performance and stuff like that. The next thing I like is going to be the focus on whole foods and obviously going after the ultra processed foods as well. And so they have really strong language about that, which I think overall is a pretty big win for the average American. Now, getting some of my critiques, I think, first of all, I hate the pyramid. I hate the pyramid idea. I think the pyramid is kind of silly, especially because MyPlate was such a better behavioral tool, right? Just show the plate of like what you should eat. I think in general, that's gonna be a better strategy than showing like, hey, eat mostly this and eat less of this, right? The next thing I don't really like is gonna be the demonization of carbs. This is just the pain in my side. It's so annoying, but people just, for whatever reason, just want to demonize carbs so bad. And obviously, they're not fully demonizing carbs. They still are recommending fruits, and they are obviously recommending vegetables, which is a type of carb. But having whole grains down there just being really small is just kind of sending the wrong message. It should be a bit bigger and a little more proportional. And so that's one of the things I really don't like. Typically, carbohydrates should be between 30 to 50% of your daily calories. Now, in the grand scheme of things, how is the new food pyramid going to affect you and me, right? Honestly, nothing, right? This won't really change anything. It will change probably some school lunches. They'll probably change some military nutritional recommendations, but for you and me, probably not gonna change a whole lot of stuff. So overall, is this an improvement from MyPlate to the new pyramid? In some ways, yes. I do think that the increase in protein is a good win. I think the downside is the demonization of carbs that the new pyramid shows. I already mentioned this earlier, but I do think the plate model is a little bit easier for people who are just kind of learning about nutrition. And so I do think that the old model, like showing the plate, is a little bit better, but I understand why they went with the pyramid style. Now for the main practical takeaways, obviously with the new food pyramid, eating whole foods is going to be recommended. Getting enough protein in is also something that they highly recommend. Main thing that I'm going to sway a little bit off of is obviously encouraging whole grains a bit more than they recommend. And so the proper thing is going to be the right macros for you, depending on where you're starting at, where your goals are. And so if you're looking for more individualized advice and individualized coaching, that's exactly what I can help you out with. Go to the description below, fill out the link to work with me one-on-one, and I'll map out your game plan step by step. Otherwise, if you're not interested in that, no worries. Just follow the content for more. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.